Um, so I walked away from that first one that I did, and I was just so annoyed with the fact that I'd actually left the chat on, and it had just heavily distracted me. And I think it was proved to me, even when I watched it, just how frustrating it is to try and like think properly and see the most like ridiculous messages like popping up on my screen. So I thought to myself, you know what? I do think that that live stream was absolute shit, and I want to do it again. So here we are again. I'm going to do this one hopefully so much better now that I've actually remembered to turn the chat off this time. And I haven't got it distracted me. And on top of that, I've also made myself a delicious apple pie to give me the fuel that I need to actually go through with this live stream. So if you watched the previous one, by all means, it is absolutely fine. You do not need to watch this one again if you watched the other one about an hour ago prior to this. Otherwise, I'm going to go over this one in hopefully much better detail, and it's going to be a lot clearer with my breakdown. So over the last week, I have been very fortunate to be working with two really great friends. Now, when I say that, I don't mean my close friends. These two guys are best friends, and they've grown up together since university, and they decided that they wanted to work on this particular area of their life. They work in a very, very prestigious role. They do very well for themselves, and they've even said as well that they're very good at doing night game stuff, but when it would come to day game or just meeting people in person during the daytime, that was just an absolute struggle for them. That they just weren't getting the kind of results that they wanted. And because both of them had just come out of relationships, and I'm pretty certain in my interviews or feedback live streams that I've done with Christian, I'm pretty certain we actually end up talking about that they both came out of long-term relationships and they were looking to put themselves back out there again and actually start dating women. But not just that, but actually quality women that they had an abundance of choice over, and they weren't relying on just meeting women through their current social circles, where there's a lot of like the typical generalizations to be made from people who work in the prestigious roles that they worked in. So the two guys at first had actually given it a go to try and cold approach on their own. They had, from what I gather, they'd actually spent a day going out to practice cold approaching, to just find it went horribly and miraculously go wrong. They, from what, I'm sure it was like 8-9 hours. I'm sure it was like 8-9 hours that they spent, but they just walked around. They didn't speak to anyone during that time. So like with most people, when they've gone out to try and do day game for like the first time ever, you know, I always commend people if they've pushed their comfort zones, put themselves in an environment that isn't something that they're used to give something a try. But of course, the guys felt very deflated that they just didn't get any sort of result. And so they then reached out and they wanted coaching. They understood that this was an area of their life that they felt incredibly weak in, and they wanted to make it just as strong as all the other areas of their lives were. So I was very fortunate that Christian had connected the guys to me, and I was able to take these two best friends out to do cold approaching over the space of 4 days. And I'd worked with them in total for about 12 hours. And this is where their development, their growth was just so impressive during that time. Because especially when I go over the stats, what you've got to bear in mind and consider is that because these are two best friends, because I was working with two people at the same time, when we were out and getting them to cold approach, they're obviously sharing the number of approaches that they were able to do. Now, in total, they roughly approached about 70, 80 women each during that 12-hour period, which even then, if you consider the amount of time dedicated to each of them was about 6 hours each. So to approach 80 women roughly in 6 hours was phenomenal. But in the total of 12 hours, they roughly approached around 160, 170 women, which is amazing to say in London. And even then, the results that they got were fantastic too. Now, before I just go through the results that I got for them, and this has been discussed on Christian's channel as well, but the two guys, as we were working together, where am I going with this? No, you know what? I will actually go through the results with them. So besides doing all of these 170, 160 approaches, between the two of them, they easily got about 15% conversion rate of number closes. They had stopped girls who were sitting down, standing up, having dinner in groups. The largest group that they'd approached was a group of 4 women. And of course, infamously, on that last day of doing the approach coaching, we as a group also went out and had an instant date with 3 very lovely Ukrainian women as well. Now, what's absolutely amazing to me is just the fact that we did all of this in 4 days. That they went from not having the ability to actually speak to any women on the street to then going through like a step-by-step process, which I took them through over the 4 days, where I then worked on just the stop itself, so running over to actually stop the women. The mistake that I think a lot of guys make, where they stay very grounded on the spot whilst they're trying to process this idea of like, do I go and talk to her? What should I say? What do I do? And during that time, she's getting further and further away. And of course, those limiting beliefs come in of like, oh, I'm not going to catch up with her. Like, oh, is there any point? Oh, she's really far away now. And maybe they're not even really limiting beliefs, but they are certainly like self-doubts that it's just not possible to go and approach someone who's clearly so far away now. So again, we worked on the actual start. I worked on this sort of momentum of moving the guys, or making sure that they were always constantly walking towards the women whilst we're thinking about going to approach them. So of course, those two things kind of go hand in hand. Then there was the element of teaching them about giving them a very natural and authentic compliment, because I really hate, when guys try and copy what they've learned from dating coaches, or they've heard a phrase or two and then they try and, say it themselves and it doesn't work. And it simply doesn't work because they haven't got that personality behind it. They just literally say the words like as if it's magic, rather than speaking or saying it in a way that actually makes it sound more meaningful and of genuine curiosity. So I taught the guys then how to actually give a compliment and how to give a much more specific compliment, rather than just saying, oh, I really like your style. Get them to justify it or explain it just that little bit more. What is it about that style that you really like? Or what is it about that look or about that person that really captivated you to want to go over and say hello to them? So we went over things like that. Then there was the element of working on the linguistics. So one of the guys would talk really, really quickly and he'd ask question after question. So it was a bit like listening and watching a very rushed interview taking place on the street. And I coached him with his body language to sort of take deep breaths and remind himself, I need to relax. I need to actively listen to what she's saying. And then having a conversation. allowing that back and forth commentary to take place to create a deeper rapport and to justify her giving a phone number to a complete stranger when the guys asked for the phone number, which was another thing that they were scared, or certainly one of them was quite anxious to ask for a phone number. So I then worked with them on that. And of course, on the last day, I really wanted them to get an instant date. And, you know, the day game gods had answered and I got them on an instant date. So the three of us, so me and the two guys, went on a fantastic date with three beautiful Ukrainian women around the Sloane Square area for what it's worth. And it made for a really beautiful experience for the guys to be able to consider when they're going forward to carry on doing day game on their own. And even as further information that I got from them afterwards, that one of them did actually go on a date with a girl that they did meet from the street. Funny enough, also from the Sloane Square area when we were coaching around there, which was still fantastic, that they were able to go within the space of 4 days from not being able to talk to anyone to being able to stop people, compliment, conversation, get a phone number, get instant dates, and actually go on dates as well. Then the guys even remember saying at the time, because of this social momentum, this flow state that they got to experience when you approach enough people per day, you get this like grounded present sort of experience. And it's not really one that I can explain or justify what it feels like. It's only something that when someone has gone through that process, they'll be able to experience and talk about themselves. Just how hyper-focused they feel as they are speaking to someone, or how they're not worrying about what people think about them around them, and that they can just say and speak how they feel or what they feel. And that's what just gives them that extra oomph and confidence and impressiveness to the women that they're talking to. So it was amazing to see this development over the course of 4 days. And even afterwards, they loved the coaching so much that they had each booked an individual session with me to just hone in on the particular things, which wasn't always as easy because of working with two guys at the same time. And of course, it also meant that they had no excuse to avoid doing particular approaches because the other friend didn't have the opportunity to steal that approach. It was 100% on them. I was then able to hold them even more accountable with doing the approaching and question and help them with any particular struggles that they had during that process. So overall, I am so pleased with how well those guys did. You know, not to toot my own horn, but I am also like over the moon with how I coached them. But more importantly, I mean, they took the feedback and used it. I can't think of what the word is. And I don't know if it added it to their system. That doesn't really make sense. But they used it and implemented it. That's the word I'm looking for. They implemented it so well. And it's just amazing even now to hear, even in like the odd message on our WhatsApp group, just the fact that they are going out, they held eye contact with girls, and they went over, said hello, and they are swapping details. So, you know, I'm really over the moon with the results that they got. Now, one of the things though that I do believe help was the fact that on the first day, I first of all got them, well, in fact, even just to backtrack, I filmed them on the first day with the coaching. So one of the things that I even offer in my own coaching services, because these were Christian's clients, is I offer a filming and feedback session where I can film guys privately, of course. So this footage isn't for anywhere. It's just really for their eyes only. But I'm then able to film guys, watch them do the infields, and then afterwards we go over the footage and I'm able to give them feedback on their approaches. So guys then get this like out of body third person perspective kind of experience where they can really see what the world sees of them. Like, how are other people interpreting them as they are going out and existing, in the world? And it's a really, really useful thing because when you get your footage, you get to observe your bad habits and your mannerisms. You can see, how you behave with people that you're speaking to. And usually when I'm then looking at that sort of stuff, I then look at three particular areas. So I look at people's body language, linguistics, and structure of content. So linguistics is how they're speaking. Are they pausing? Where's the vocal tonality going up and down? Do they sound interesting? Have they got the energy behind what they're saying as well? Then you've got things like body language, such as like with the eye contact, with like the posture, even how you're actually standing and presenting to women, because sometimes when guys get nervous, like their hands are all over the place, they start sort of fidgeting and stuff, and it just makes them look awkward. And then the last thing that I tend to look at is also the structure of content. So the actual conversation that you're having with women. So on that first day, in the first 20 minutes, I'd said to the guys, and this is what really, really made them go shitless with this. And I think they really appreciate it now, especially when they look back. But what really helped was them having to just do the approaching on their own without any feedback from me, except for just filming their approaches, which then gives them the opportunity afterwards to watch themselves back and see exactly all of the bad habits and behaviors they've got. Now, that's not to say though that during that session that they didn't then get any sort of feedback. In fact, far from it. It was only just those first couple of approaches as they're warming up, getting into flow state, that I didn't give them the advice. And then afterwards, we went through some of the fundamentals again with how to actually stop a girl and also just how to give a compliment. I'm also a believer, like, you don't need to try and do or fix every single little thing on the first day of a cold approach coaching. I believe that it's actually better to kind of take it in a bit more of I think an agile approach. I think that would be the right term for it, where we just work on one particular thing at a time. We get good at that, as well as then pushing into the next little bit. But once you get really good at that first bit, then you can focus on the next bit and then move forward and forward. So like, for example, if a guy does not know how to stop someone and give a compliment, then what is the point in focusing on them trying to ask for a phone number? Now, absolutely, I do think guys need to get that practice in, but bearing in mind that you're better just to worry on the thing that you are struggling with first. Get good at stopping people. If you can stop people and give them a compliment, great. That's like the first hurdle. Then as for the conversation side, it's about learning the active listening or bringing in certain conversation techniques that's just going to help you to have a longer conversation with someone, and also not to necessarily build attraction, but just to build a connection. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to the attraction side of it, it's about actually stating to the girl that you're attracted to her. It's about asking for the phone number at the end of the interaction with her. And during the conversation bit, so in the middle, so I've kind of done this as before, at the start, at the end, and then in the middle. But in the middle, during the conversation, there's got to be something that creates that spark that a lot of people speak about. There's got to be some kind of sexual chemistry or attraction there that indicates to her that going on a date with you is probably going to be a really good or fun idea. So there's obviously a lot of elements that a guy needs to learn about, but when you do this enough times, it kind of becomes second nature. And it's really not as difficult as you think it is. And it's why something like desensitization therapy or exposure therapy is so good at this. Because the more you can be cold approaching and the more comfortable you can be with talking to strangers, then bringing in that kind of like sexual tension or upping your confidence even with the women that you're speaking to is only going to get you even better results further down the line. But just consider the fact that these guys went from absolutely nothing to 4 days later or 12 hours later to getting instant dates and having really chunky messages via text and WhatsApp sent back to them by the girls that they had stopped on the street. Which is, I think, really reassuring to any guy who doesn't have any confidence with this. These two best friends, they've never done cold approaching or day game before in their life. And in that short period of time, they turned things around 180 and they are now able to go out and do things on their own. And let that sink in, because if you are someone who is genuinely unhappy with their dating life, then you have the opportunity to do something about it. And if you go to the right kind of coach, whether it be me, whether it be Christian, or even if you are somewhere else out in the world, there's dating coaches everywhere. And funny enough, I don't actually count myself as a dating coach. I'd probably consider myself more as a cold approach coach, and also someone who specializes in the approach anxiety or social anxiety element of it. Like, I want to be able to help guys, and I help guys to just overcome that anxiety with that whole process. So you can get comfortable talking to women on the street in a really unnormal sort of way, then you can speak to people and get dates from anywhere. I wholeheartedly believe that. But rest assured that, you know what? You at some point, whether it be today, tomorrow, in a week's time, whatever, as soon as you're done or fed up with having a really poor or shitty dating life and you want to do something about it, the moment you go to a coach, just consider how quickly you could actually turn this around. And within a week's time, you could already be in a position saying like, I've now got way too many girls like wanting to go on a date with me. Like, how on earth did that happen? How did I go from not having any dates to now having like 4 or 5 girls wanting to meet up with me? You know, that can 100% happen. And I think with a lot of guys, the one reason why they don't do that is because they are just scared of the success, or they have that fear of the success that they could have if they actually put the effort into their dating lives. So don't be afraid of experiencing something that is incredibly unknown to you, because maybe you've had a really shitty dating life for way too long of a time and you are used to it. You can change that. You can go on dates. You can, my cat's underneath the chair scratching. You can have whatever sort of dating life you want, and whatever pace as well. Don't think like, oh, I've got to be having like, if I do this, I'm going to have like a date every night and stuff. It's nonsense. Like, most people just don't have the time to be or money even, to be going on a date every single night. And that then means that when you decide to take action and do cold approaching, you can also start thinking about the sort of strategies that you want. How many times a week, or how many approaches do you probably have to do a week to get a number of dates that you want per week? Most guys I know, they probably want maybe like 2 dates a week. That's something that they can kind of handle outside of like their work and socializing and meeting with friends and having hobbies and stuff, or seeing family. That's quite a realistic number, you know. But obviously, if you've got more free time, or maybe you haven't got any friends and you want to be spending all your time dating, and you have all the money in the world to just be spending every single day cold approaching and then going on a date in the evening, then by all means, you can 100% do that too. But you know what? These guys, though, in less than a week, or if we really want to get technical, in less than like half a day, in 12 hours, they had done just so much change work in themselves. They did between 70 to 80, I've just got the stats here. They did between 70 to 80 approaches a day is what I totaled that up between the two of them. So if I was just working or had worked with just one guy at a time, then you'd have been walking away after 12 hours doing about 150 to 180 approaches, which is phenomenal. So just think about, if you were to go forward on this journey of doing cold approaching, where could you be in a week's time? And then where could you be in a month's time if you continue with that by being held accountable, or whether it be you holding yourself accountable, a coach or a friend or whoever? Where could your dating life be by making these changes? And that is where I think I want to leave this live stream, that within a week, you can have the dating life that you want. It could be as easy as that. Decide it now, decide it in a month, decide it at the end of the year when the New Year fireworks go off and you're at home on your own and alone, and you thought to yourself, you know what, I don't want to experience this anymore. I want a girlfriend, or I want to have a social circle of friends that I can be supportive of, and vice versa for me. Then learn the social skills that you can get from cold approaching. It's not even just about for meeting women. You can apply this to every area of your life. But for guys who want to get a girlfriend, or they want to have a bit of fun before maybe they find themselves a girlfriend, I highly recommend that you put yourselves out there, give Day Game a go, try it yourself. And if you're struggling, seek help. You've either got myself here, you've got either Christian, or you've got other coaches around the world. But by all means, I want you to be having an amazing dating life. You absolutely deserve it. And if these guys can do it on their own, or with my support, but now on their own, I can't see any reason why you can't too. It's just a matter of taking a chance, rolling the dice and seeing what happens, and just learning how to deal with the unpredictable. Now, I've actually got the hiccups there, so I think this is probably where I will end this live stream. I really, really hope you enjoyed this, and by all means, do check out the actual feedback sessions that I did on the guys. They're actually on Christian's channel, and in fact, I am going to ask him if I can put a copy of them on my channel as well, because it really was such a fantastic experience and such a privilege as well to work with these two gentlemen. And again, there is no reason why any other guy can't replicate the same results too. There is no reason why within a week of working with me that you can't be having not just like a constant stream of phone numbers, but you can't be going on instant dates too. In fact, I think even me, it was actually quite a surprise that, I'd thrown it out to the Day Game gods that I wanted that last day for them to have an instant date, and we got it, and it was as a group date as well. Was just absolutely amazing. So if you want to experience the same thing as well, then do check out my website. I've got on there now some new coaching programs and offers that I think are really, really going to be perfect for you if you want to be getting good results with women, and you aren't then going to be saying like, oh, I really hate my life, or like, oh, cold approach doesn't work, or, Day Game doesn't work for me. It's like, it does, but you've got to do it right. You've got to know what you're doing, and you've got to be okay to embrace all of the bad experiences as well as the good ones as well. And even with bad experiences, you're never really going to get a bad approach. The worst is that the girl just ignores you or says no thank you. But you've got to experience them to be able to grow too. So check out my website, have a look at the services that I've got on there. I've got a 7-day coaching, I've got a filming and feedback. And for the guys who really want a taster of what it's like, I offer a taster session, which is just a 1-day experience as well. So So by all means, have a look at that on my site. And if you are interested, then do reach out via email and we can kind of get the ball rolling and have a chat about how I can actually help you. Find out where you're at in your dating journey and see if hopefully I can change things for the better. So I've been Dan, that dating anxiety guy. I really appreciate if anyone actually watched this the second time round. Like I say, I thought the first take of this stream that I did was absolute crap, and I'm so pleased that I have come back to do this again. 100% having the chat thing on is the worst decision I could ever make. It's just helped to not be distracted and genuinely give you guys the honest feedback and experience that those guys had. So check them out on Christian's channel, the actual feedback sessions that I had and that I was able to share with Christian. But otherwise, do check out my website. I look forward to hopefully hearing from you guys. I've been Dan, that dating anxiety guy, and I look forward to really hopefully working with you, or at the very least, you watching more of my videos too.